In a dusk battle, the Grail culls the Bloodsworn before the final battle. The culling is determined by virtue. Virtue can be earned in a variety of ways. Blood roses spout from the bloodstains of fallen great foes. Press minus to manifest power of blood. At these sites, when the hand of the clock can be earned in two different ways, a ritual site appears defeating in the Bloodsworn. Those who have entered an agreement with the Order of Dusk are known as kin. Compacts with kin are entered into at power to Bloodsworn with whom they are aligned. Summoning circles are found at the base of the chains of light that stretch into the sky and eye. There are 3 types indicated by the crest atop the chain of light. This sigil makes another Bloodsworn you're once bonded. Obtain powers of blood from enhance Bloodsworn in a multitude of ways. Choose one from a list of options. Video games, man. I remember a friend once insisting on showing me the first episode of Game of Thrones, several years after it had crested the wave of popular culture. I thought, yeah, sure, several million people can't be wrong, and those other big-budget prestige American shows were pretty good, so let's give it a go. This might have been the last time that I truly trusted a friend. I did not enjoy the first episode of Game of Thrones, it resembling something my 10-year-old self might have imagined after a late-night Lord of the Rings bender. Now, I think I'm quite good at suspending my disbelief. This is a video games podcast after all, but this is one case where I couldn't see past the pantomime of it all. Grown adults playing dress-up and rolling around on a soundstage, saying words no one would say in orders no one would dare. It's probably also the last time I thought that I could possibly, maybe, perhaps get along with high fantasy. I think it's a lack of humour, the po-faced self-seriousness. Now, I'm not saying Game of Thrones or its descendants should be winking at the camera or doing irony, but I've seen a lot of children's shows now. Many of them are emotionally and thematically mature, seemingly more so than what I got from Game of Thrones. Stop me if you think that you've heard this one before, but I'll take Bingo and Bandit over Kit Harington any day. The crossover between fantasy and video games is, obviously, huge, and runs the gauntlet from light touch to the full Tolkien. Sometimes it's addressing to the mechanics, an aesthetic choice that doesn't impact totally on the totality of the project, and sometimes it's more. The heavy-duty pixies and potions and lords and ladies of Final Fantasy, The Witcher and Dragon Quest have always held me at arm's length, whereas the brighter, light touch of something like that Nintendo series about the Silent Swordsman does not. Even something like Blasphemous, a pretty serious, grim, dark 2D action Soulsvania, holds a certain appeal, but that's probably due to the increased emphasis on hitting things hard and often. And so, we come to From Software. I've always been interested in the nearly 40-year-old Japanese development studio, simultaneously intrigued and repelled by the reputation they have for fully realised immersive games that are knuckle-grindingly punishing and inaccessibly difficult, and all the swords, chainmail and talking trees. Sekiro sounds great, but it feels like a game more likely to have me throwing things out of windows than my hands up in triumph. I have the same reaction to their approach to world building. Like their contemporaries, I just assume that I'm missing something. That there is some fundamental thing I've missed in the core that would unlock an appreciation of this kind of fantasy. And yet, these are 2 pieces of design that, despite myself, I am always drawn to. Insert an all-too-easy Moth reference here, but the fact is, I consistently find myself intrigued by hard games, and fantasy games. With the former, it's usually the need to see what everyone is talking or complaining about, but also to test myself, to see what my difficulty limits actually are. Yes, absolutely a toxic ego thing. Also, despite those reservations about high fantasy, it is, simply, escapism. We all want that. FromSoft are now one of the most influential contemporary development studios, arguably the single most important one in the last 20 years, the one that has most clearly informed the direction of mainstream and independent gaming. You can measure influence not just in gameplay or mechanical terms. FromSoft affect the language of development, criticism, and discourse. The systems and styles they bring to bear, that they convert from the fringes to the front pages, are now as key a part of the vernacular as any of the established gaming commandments. Now, if I counted correctly, FromSoft have nearly 70 titles to their name, and I have not played a single one. So when they bring a new, completely insane-sounding one, with a playable robot chicken man in it, exclusively to the Nintendo Switch 2, what, exactly, am I supposed to do? Hi, I'm Andrew. Welcome to Dialogue Tree. This is episode 49. Game Chat. The Duskbloods, Mina the Hollower, Splatoon, and more. I am Albert, and I am standing on a cliff watching the sunset over the ornate Gothic architecture of Lowen Row City. Albert's billowing, princely white shirt, leather boots, and inconvenient, entirely face-covering head of silver hair give him the air of the hero of your best teen fan fiction. But this being the game it is from the developer that it is, there is something slightly off, something slightly sickly about him. Maybe it's the rifle he conceals about his person, or the fact that he can fling damaging arcs of red-black blood from his sword. Albert and I look over the city, processing the information we have been given so far. We are both currently wondering when and where the ritual sites will appear in the Lands of Dusk, where we can find a blood pledge pillar, whether or not we should swear to a kin, or how to equip a sigil. If he's as confused as I am, he doesn't show it. That fringe helps. The Duskbloods is a PvPvE online-only third-person action game with influences from Souls games and board games. It is a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive, revealed in June 2025, scheduled for release in the rapidly disappearing 2026 and only now emerging in a playable form, in the network test that occurred between 21st and 24th of August. You had to apply via a website over a month ago, check back on that website a few weeks later to see if you were accepted, go back to that website on the 17th to get a code that allows you to download the app, and then log into the app on one of the 5 specific time windows within the test period to play. This multi-step, semi-convoluted process should have been a warning, as it is very much in keeping with the general approach of the game. It pushes as much as it pulls. Albert and I make our way down to the city. There are sheer cliffs, even more sheer drops down and down to misty marshes, and before us, that city, resplendent in burnt orange and stained glass, a raised drawbridge at the centre surrounded by a sea of rooftops dotted with ominous buttresses. We are, possibly, still in the hour-plus tutorial that kicked off the network test. No tutorial should be an hour plus. With the Duskbloods, it could, and probably should, be longer. This game is overwrought and overstuffed. An absolute mess of rules and systems, controls that use every button twice, and a borderline impenetrable dictionary of proper nouns, often confusing and even more often brutally hard. And most importantly, pretty brilliant. Prior to the network test going live, the previews went up. Many of these, IGN, GameSpot, VatiVidya and the rest, were all variations on the theme. How do you play the Duskbloods? My turn. You start in the House of Blood, a small animated hub world where you choose your character, modify various gameplay options, and marvel at the almost offensively small text. Choose your character from Albert, Bloodhound Jan, the guy in the white pyjama suit from the reveal trailer, Trang Lan, who wields boomerang-like flying blades, Sniper Layla, Senator Samir Patres, and everyone's favourite steampunk deep-sea robot chicken man, Zork. At the same time, you can choose to equip a sigil. These sigils give you a bonus mission to complete in-game, usually kill someone or defend someone. Don't spend too much time thinking about that, because there is a lot more. Choose your character. You choose Zork. Press Y to join a match. When the match starts, you drop into an overview of the map, from where you can choose a starting area. You can also optionally set a waypoint here, which you should, because from the moment a match starts, you need to do stuff, and do it quickly. There are several icons on the map. I like the little purple blobs, which mean one thing if they are purple blobs, but something else entirely if they are a purple blob with a line underneath it. You materialise at a travel point on the map. The goal in the Duskbloods is to win this match. Each match is divided into 4 phases. You must survive the first 3, and you must win the 4th. To even survive to that point, and to make your character strong enough to do so, you must collect a resource called Virtue. There are roughly 4,000 ways to do this. You drop into the match and start your hunt. This is Phase 1. No one is eliminated at the end of Phase 1, and given the nature of Phases 2 and 3, it quickly becomes apparent that this first section is all about gathering resources. You do that by running around this not entirely open but very large indeed world, killing enemies, exploring, finding items, completing environmental quests. Defeating the basic overworld enemies is the quickest way to level up, and you need to, because the larger enemies are right there, very close, and you won't scratch them unless you first take out a lot of grunts. Note that your player level and virtue are separate things. You level up fairly quickly, in a linear fashion, 1, 2, 3, 4. Your level directly and noticeably affects your health bar and attack power. Your virtue can increase in, well, really any amount. 5, 6, 20, nothing. You level up seamlessly, the number going up without user interaction. Virtue requires a bit more from you. More on that in a sec. The controls. You move with the left stick and control the camera with the right. You have a light attack on R1 and a heavy attack on ZR. Your block is L1 and ranged attack is ZL. You click the left stick to run and the right to lock on. You have a weird move where you blow air at an enemy to increase their stagger meter. I never really get on with that. You have items on the D-pad. Now generally whenever I try and use one of the equipable weapons on the D-pad, I either cast a bed of flames instead of initiating a heal, which ends badly for me, or I accidentally trigger a heal mid-combat that ends badly for me. A is dodge, and B is jump. A quadruple jump. That's the first indicator that this game might be doing something a little different. Back to how you gather virtue. Now, around the map are various sort of side quests or optional objectives that help or hinder you in this aim. You can defeat mini-bosses, explore the map and light certain flames, get them as random drops from killing NPC enemies, defend flags during the rituals, which only happen in Phases 2 and 3, team up with players for co-op boss battles, defeat other players during the rituals, and by completing that aforementioned equipable sigil quest. The most common optional objective is probably the trespassers, and how these work is one of the most obvious ways in the network test that FromSoft show what it is doing differently. It's demand that you constantly question and balance alliance and conflict. These trespassers present in-game as a purple vapour that materialises into something horrible, usually with a lot of arms, teeth or knives when you get close. This turns the game into a co-op arena battle, my favourite being the Lady of the Bog, a lady like no other you've previously met, this one being a giant frog with a busy forked tongue. Other players have the option to join you. If you start one of these battles, other players are notified that they can help you, and given the option to warp to your location with a press of the minus button. The game is then extreme gothic Monster Hunter, with no friendly fire, until you defeat this mini-boss, or in my case, until it defeats me by throwing me off a cliff. If you do defeat the boss, you get a load of virtue, and then the game returns to normal. If you die, you get nothing. The risk and the reward. Your allies are now your enemies, and they are close. Good luck. In Phase 1, I run around defeating enemies, picking stuff up, switching stuff on, running around a corner and getting one-shot by a 10-armed man-wolf, that sort of thing. Sometimes the big number marked virtue goes up, and sometimes it doesn't. I have no idea what I'm doing right or wrong, why number go up or why number go down. Sometimes I end Phase 1 with a decent amount of virtue, and sometimes with a giant, judgmental 0. In Phase 2, the 2 players with the least virtue at the end of the phase are eliminated. So now, the emphasis shifts very definitively to gathering that resource. To effect the most chaotic, fun, frustrating means of doing this that forces players together as friends or foes, the game introduces the Blood Pledge Pillars. Now these are set points on the map marked by a yellow beam, at the top of which is a crest that means something. You find a pillar and swear to it with Y, that is, claim it for your own, and then, when the timed ritual begins, which comes towards the end of the phase, that pillar is your tower/base to defend. Defend it to the end? Well done, here's a load of virtue. Get killed, and there's none for you. You can take other people's pillars if you beat them while they're in control of one. and this ritual section is the only time when defeating other players rewards you with virtue. Phase 3 repeats this format with the bottom 3 players getting eliminated, leaving only the final 3. By this point, everything, enemies, other players, are far more dangerous than they were earlier. Again, good luck. Phase 4? Well, I'm reliably informed by that multitude of gameplay explainers that it's a direct P versus P versus P situation. The final 3 players locked into combat with a definitive winner. I wouldn't know, because I never see it. Constantly culled in Phase 3 because my virtue level of somewhere between 20 and 40 can't really compete with those players who are somehow in the hundreds. I find the Duskbloods opaque, overwhelming, overly busy, overly complex, hard to read, even harder to succeed in, and when the auto-lock is having something resembling a medical emergency, incredibly frustrating. I also find it incredibly fun. Why, when I'm constantly being eaten alive by players and NPCs alike, and simultaneously unclear about what I'm even supposed to be doing, do I find the Duskbloods so appealing? Well, in marrying the weighty, methodical combat that their Souls games have popularised with increased speed, constantly changing objectives, rapidly evolving gameplay situations, and on-the-fly planning and re-evaluation, FromSoft have created something pretty different here. The Duskbloods is incredibly quick, chaotic, and lively. There is, immediately apparent, even in what is nominally a demo, a range of systems and variety of available strategies that contributes to a quite remarkable depth to its gameplay. In the movement, and I really cannot get over that quadruple jump, Miyazaki and gang have taken the idea of mobility being good and taken it to a quite comical extreme. It's a simple but effective tactic. People like going fast, and that good, speedy, responsive game feel really does neuter so much frustration that players like me are going to experience. At the same time, that design decision allows FromSoft to go wild with the map design. The verticality of Low and Rose City is striking. It's so vertical that the map has layers. It's big, promising many secrets, nooks and crannies, which would all be nothing if the game didn't look good and perform as close to flawless as they can manage, and in both cases, I was surprised and delighted. A persistent, loud narrative around any Nintendo console is a perceived lack of power, but to my untrained eye at least, the Duskbloods did look and perform pretty flawlessly. The city looked great, there was no stutter, pop-up, frame drops or lag. And that power also allows one last thing to shine. Those freaky characters. The small selection of which we get here a fine example of this developer's aptitude for the weird and wonderful. None of these gnarly weirdos fit into any box, with the possible exception of Albert, if you're generous, and I can't wait to see what other gross treats FromSoft have in store for us whenever this thing releases. The Duskbloods is a notably ambitious game, and I think this team should be applauded for making a big and bold stab at applying their style to an entirely different framework of game, and based on this test, it's actually working, and working really well. In his media rounds for this preview, game director and From Software president Hidetaki Miyazaki said he wants the game to be positive for new and experienced Souls players. In an interview with IGN, he said, quote, "I want veterans to feel like they're contributing to the newcomers and the newcomers to feel like they're being accepted and having fun with others," end quote. Well, mission accomplished there then. Then again, in a press briefing, he also said of the Bloodsworn, quote, "We didn't want them to just be monsters, but to give the impression that they are a species with intelligence and philosophy and culture and history," end quote. Now that feels like a stretch for Zork, but I think they've earned the leeway. Can Miyazaki's game gather the consistent audience an online game needs to thrive, let alone survive, being exclusive to a platform not known for such experiences? We'll see. Time and space depending, I'm in. That's the Duskbloods. Now, let's go over a load of stuff I've played this year that runs the gamut from great all the way to very great. Now, this isn't everything I've played, only games that I won't be covering in greater detail on future episodes. There's quite a few of those. So let's get on with this. First, Dench Attack. Dench Attack is the game where you are a skateboarding train. It's Tony Hawk with a wild anime aesthetic, superb eye-popping art direction, and what is likely to go down as the OST of the year. 10 seconds of gameplay is kind of all you need to get what this is. It's a kinetic, high-octane blast of a game that sees you blasting through a positive post-environmental apocalypse Japan, doing wild tricks, battling wilder enemies, doing some visual novel stuff in between, and unlocking a load of background story by finding hidden collectibles in the blur that is the levels. It's a kinetic, high-octane blast of a game that I find hard to really get on board with, for stupid reasons that I get with similar experiences that shoot you like a rocket through their worlds. I remember playing Spark the Electric Jester 3, a 3D Sonic-like that sees you running at high speed through linear racecourses, pulling off tricks and combos to maintain your momentum and get from start to finish. That, like Densh Attack, look and feel great to play, but at the end of any level, I leave feeling oddly unsatisfied. And the only reason I can pin that down to is feeling like I haven't truly explored the game, the world, and that in doing what I've been asked, I've consequently missed out on a lot. I get this with Densh Attack. This is still a very good, very polished experience from a small developer that is great for all the reasons that the many positive reviews have described. I just haven't been as compelled to finish it as I have other things. Now, I will, because conducting boss fights as a train is brilliant in both concept and practice, but to explain a little further why I haven't yet, let's talk about Turnip Mountain. Another game that is at the very least interesting to control, and another game with a killer soundtrack. Turnip Mountain previously featured on episode 26 of Dialogue Tree, when I played the demo as part of Steam Next Fest. It is now here, fully grown and harvested by developer Luke Sanderson. I picked it up on launch, slightly nervous about how I would reacclimatise to its somewhat insane control scheme, and now, several hours and several bouts of debilitating hand cramps later, I have rolled credits on it. For the uninitiated, Turnip Mountain is a puzzle platform climbing game, with emphasis on the climbing. Now you are that titular turnip, knocked from its home at the top of the titular mountain, and you must climb back up. It is, at its base level, a spiritual sequel to Donkey Kong King of Swing, in that the aim here is to climb with individually controlled limbs. So, the left stick controls the left arm, and left trigger the left hand. The right stick controls the right arm, and the right trigger the right. You push up with the left stick to extend your left arm. Grip a surface with a squeeze of the left trigger. Pull back on the left stick to retract that arm, pulling yourself up. Repeat with the right side of the controller. Yes, it is fiddly, and occasionally brain rattling. And that'll be the sticking point for a lot of players. Which is fine. It's not meant to be an easy game to control. Learning, and that is learning, never mastering, is the challenge for us normal players. Some will not like it. I, personally, loved it so much when it went well that I overlooked all the moments that it didn't. Getting into a fluid groove, rapidly rappelling across, up or along a surface hand by hand to avoid environmental hazards, well, that just feels really good. It's a complex hand ballet, and doing that even once in a level made all the challenge worthwhile. Even better is holding on, stretching both arms, then flinging yourself across, up or along the mountainside from one surface to another. Sometimes this is just for fun, and others it's essential to progress. And speaking of progress, you do so by climbing from screen to screen through 8 levels of increasing complexity. New mechanics are introduced on each conceptually simple but adding constantly unpredictable variety and challenge. There are seeds you can throw to create new climbable platforms. There is weather that can help or hinder you. There are water levels, where you must manage your oxygen but also allow for increased mobility. There are winches you must crank with some finger-twisting digital gymnastics to move platforms and other environmental assets. There are a ton of coins to collect that can be used in an amusing gacha machine to buy a variety of amusing hats for your turnip. I like the party hat. There are collectible palettes that genuinely add to the monochrome default, my personal favourite, Ruby, I think, making the crisp pixel art pop off the screen even more than it already does. The final stage introduces a mechanic that turns on its head everything you've done so far, kind of upending the basic fragility of the game and your precarious presence in it, making it a little easier, still with a little bite, but a nice gift for getting that far and a way for both you and the developer to have fun and really make the most of what these controls, what this game feel can allow. Add in the aforementioned soundtrack by Isabel chiming, and despite the carpal tunnel syndrome I suspect I will be visited by with increasing regularity now, this game is a neat and individual take on a style of game we rarely see. Like Cairn, but fun, that's Turnip Mountain. Now, from the peaks of Turnip Mountain to the depths of internet gaming discourse, I played Mina the Hollower. You know what this game is, but for the sake of completeness, Mina the Hollower is a top-down 2D action-adventure game developed by Yacht Club Games, inspired aesthetically by the Game Boy Color Legend of Zelda games and mechanically by Castlevania and any Metroid-leaning game you care to name. You play Mina, a mouse, which we understand, and also a Hollower, which we do not. In the context of the game, it means Mina is good at science and burrowing, but seemingly, somehow, low on society's totem pole. You are shipwrecked on the Isle of Tenebrous, a place you have visited previously, where you helped with the construction of several imposing towers whose purpose is to, wave hands mysteriously, harness energy to power the cities of this locale. Something has gone wrong. The energy they are harvesting has corrupted the denizens, animals and beasts of the land, turning them violent, and you must traverse each area, fighting your way through a variety of pixelated horrors on your way to repairing these towers. There is a question mark over all of this, namely Mayor Lionel, an apparent friend of Mina's who insists that the towers be repaired, not destroyed, and that the guy saying the opposite, earnest, mildly less suspicious freedom fighter Thorn, is a menace to society and must be thwarted urgently. You then, with great difficulty, platform your way through 8 discrete areas on the overworld map before arriving at a dungeon where you will then, with great difficulty, platform and battle your way through to facing off against the area boss, after which you will tackle a completely different style of game that sees you climbing, with great difficulty, one of the energy towers, in sections designed seemingly to test the outer limits of your patience and tolerance for fluid interpretations of the player character hitbox. There is combat, given a twist with a variety of appreciably different weapons and your mad burrowing mechanic. There is exploration, lots and lots of exploration, things hidden everywhere behind puzzles and platform challenges big and small, sidearms that should be approached strategically, even if the game doesn't let you, a huge swathe of discoverable or winnable trinkets to augment yours and Mina's abilities, excellent pixel art with a unique, distinct gothic twist, and Jake Kaufman's brilliant soundtrack, which is like Jake Kaufman's Shovel Knight soundtrack, but 4 times as big and therefore 4 times as good. Mina the Hollower is brilliant, and Mina the Hollower is evil. Happily for you and I'm far too late to start, restart or engage in any discourse around the difficulty of this game. But the difficulty is something worth discussing. I think, in its base, unmodified state, this game is too hard. I rolled credits on the game in its base, unmodified state, partly out of ego, pride, stubbornness, but also to be able to have personal confidence in that statement. I find Mina the Hollower frustrating in ways I did not find other hard games frustrating. Celeste, Cuphead, Hollow Knight, Silksong, etc. All challenging, demanding games that, importantly, empower the player with the tools to meet that challenge. I don't think Mina the Hollower does this to the same extent. I think it can be summarised as this. In its base, unmodified state, it is simply too easy to take too much damage. Enemies are afforded abilities that you are not, that undermine your basic state. They can rush you, break your guard, knock you into a pit, damaging you twice. You do not have that same luxury, and really, that's it. At every point in the game, you are at a constant inherent disadvantage, your relative lack of traversal and defensive options making the game less expressive and more player hostile than it should be. Mina the Hollower feels, always, like it's pushing back against the player really, really hard. There is, of course, that buffet of modifiers in the options menu. Cheats, Yacht Club calls them. I think it's telling that, in my anecdotal experience, culled from Blue Sky and Discord, players who were having a bad time with the game only started having a good time with the game after turning several of these on. That is fine, everyone should be able to do that if they wish, and the game is cool enough that it's objectively a good thing that lots of players who may otherwise have walked away got to experience this, apparently, make or break project from a beloved developer. Whether players should have to or not, is another matter. A difficulty has been covered on this show previously. Patrick Knisley spoke about it when discussing his game Monochrome Heights, and Toby Alden has done so regarding his game Love Eternal. Both are hardcore platformers that I don't think should have accessibility options because the challenge is the game. The mechanics are straightforward, and you, as the player, have the tools to succeed. It's just practice. You can do it. Mina the Hollower's scales are tipped ever in their favour. That's why, despite the look and feel and lineage of this game hitting a lot of home runs for me, I don't love it in the same way as others in this sphere. There is lots to enjoy. Exploration is top-down Zelda on its uppers, combat options are varied, axe, shield, then gun, if you're interested, and the burrowing is a genuinely unique thing. Simultaneously traversal, offensive and defensive tool, a hard to pick up and hard to master mechanic that is nonetheless a good time, whatever kind of time you are overall having. The environments are varied and memorable. The nasty little Halloween spirit of Septemberg, with its Resident Evil 2 aping Mr. X figure being a highlight. The bosses are fun, because screen-filling pixel art monstrosities are always fun. The story and dialogue are good. This can be quite a funny game. And the music is excellent. It is, in totality, a fully realised experience. An effective modern take on a number of old styles and genres. More sincere and genuine than the arch raised eyebrow that was Shovel Knight. It's a very good game that I had a very bad time with. It's a game that hits so many beats I love that I'll likely never play again. It's a game whose movement and combat I found wonderful that nonetheless compelled me to kick a laundry basket down the stairs in a moment of comically impotent white male frustration after another failed run at the final boss. Like Mina herself, smart, capable and respected, reviled, fragile and rejected, there's a duality to this game. I like it, but I cannot love it. That was Mina the Hollower. And that is enough discourse. I also played Mixtape. Mixtape is an interactive story/visual novel from Australian development team Dinosaur and Beethoven, published by Annapurna Interactive and released on pretty much everything in May 2026. In it, you play Stacey Rockford, a middle American teen heading out for one last summer night in this one last summer with her friends Slater and Cassandra before college, life and everything that comes after separates them for who knows how long. The game is divided into episodic chapters, each soundtracked by a different song from Stacey's life. Sometimes these simply underpin a narrative section, some dialogue or light exploration of an environment. At others, they are essentially gamified music videos, and very effective ones at that. With its gorgeous stop-motion animation and very cinematic cinematography, Mixtape is a confident and adept demonstration of what is possible in a game. Multiple influences coming together to form a singular audiovisual experience that stands apart from even the highest peaks of this genre, the Edith Finches and the Firewatches. There are some spectacular sequences. Slater monologuing while floating in front of an astral projection, Stacey floating backwards in black and white, across, up and above the town, knocking over everything in her path, and the bit where you're a dinosaur. All remarkable segments of a game that elevate the project, that justify the budget and support this game must have had. This game made some people angry, right? Well, mostly, it seemed to make all the right people angry. Some people said there was no gameplay. They're wrong. There is gameplay, and even if there wasn't, it wouldn't matter. Some people said it was too woke. They're wrong, and, well, we can just ignore those people. Some people said it's bad because they couldn't work out what year the game was set in. It's not set in a specific period of time. It's set in a specific period of life. Signifiers of different eras woven in to give the game universal appeal. I thought that was obvious, but apparently not. Some people said it's bad because it didn't reflect their subjective teenage music taste, and that there is no way any given person could listen to such a varied mix of music. Now, the point I'm making here is the error in confusing one's own experience with another's, but go with me on this little contradiction. When I was Stacey's age, I listened to a mix of contemporary and non-contemporary music, out of both genuine curiosity and a vaguely cynical need to be different, to find my own cultural identity away from the mainstream. That's kind of what you do. I think the presence of Smashing Pumpkins' love is the giveaway here. No one, not even the biggest Pumpkin fan in the world, would claim that's a good one, let alone one of their best. thereby demonstrating that this selection is at least mostly made up of genuine heart picks from Johnny Galvatron and team. I like the soundtrack, because I haven't heard most of it. The one that sticks with me most is BJ White's Most of All, an easy listening classic steeped in glorious late 60s, early 70s haze. It's so good that it almost makes up for the presence of David Gray. All told, the soundtrack kind of perfectly reflects the nature of this game. Singular, but accessible. But I don't like Mixtape. I don't like Mixtape because I've seen Dazed and Confused, and I've seen Slackers, and I've seen Empire Records, and High Fidelity, and Pretty in Pink, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I've seen the films from which this game cribs its narrative beats, needle drops, dialogue, and plot twists. When it does this, I don't feel what it's trying to communicate. I simply feel manipulated. Mixtape presents a copy, a facsimile, a signpost pointing at some media you've already experienced and asking that you feel the way that made you feel, rather than putting any effort into evoking that emotion organically. I don't like that at all, and I find it quite cynical. It recycles other work in a non-additive way to say very little beyond the fact that being young and liking music is good. The problem that drives this is the writing. Stacy, Slater, and Cassandra are underwritten one-dimensional archetypes with little to nothing going beyond a 3-word character description. The game maybe, possibly, hints at deeper relationships with the occasional furtive glance, but never commits in any way to this, leaving it instead up to the player to fill in the blanks, do the narrative heavy lifting, to do the writer's job for them. The relationship between Stacy and Cassandra is an egregious case in point. The narrative conflict that comes by convention at the end of Act 2 hinges on their falling out, but this barely registers, as they barely seem to know each other, let alone be close friends. Whatever emotional effect is achieved by Mixtape is simply an advert for the power of putting a good song over some evocative images. That is a skill, but for me, the emotional catharsis of Mixtape is not earned. There is no journey for these characters. They all get what they want with little proactive input. Everything just happens the way it is meant to, with little genuine crafted friction. This is a problem of writing, but it's a problem I don't really think Beethoven and Dinosaur wanted to fix. Anemoia is a term meaning longing for a past you've never experienced. Anemoia is all over Mixtape, and its success with players is predicated on it. Mixtape is nostalgia for an imagined America. Mixtape is nostalgia for American teen movies, or at least how American teen movies made you feel. It is a genuinely excellent audio-visual experience. Fun, playful, striking and innovative that nonetheless feels empty. A vessel for the heart and soul of other media rather than something that has its own story to tell. Now I will go to bat against anyone who says Mixtape is bad because you can't fail the skateboarding sequences or because it's got a female protagonist, because those aren't the problem. Toxic nostalgia. A 40-something white male's romanticised vision of their own past, packaged and sold back to us as a soothing, seamless mental balm. Propaganda for the idea that your teen years are the best of your life. I want more than this. That's Mixtape. Rip it up and start again. Now let's talk about a game I played earlier in the year that made a little impact on release, that seems to be getting more traction as the months roll on. Starring a loner, a sentient farmyard animal, and a big supporting cast of weirdos, freaks, and fungus fanatics. It's Hermit and Pig. Hermit and Pig is a light-hearted RPG with a novel take on turn-based combat, wherein you largely play the former while making dalliances with the latter, in service of a quest that sees you trying to locate a giant legendary mushroom in order to solve the hunger issues affecting a small town, whilst on the way making small dents in the malevolent corporate entity that has blighted whatever area of the world this game takes place in. To do this, you do top-down RPG things. You set out from your home, explore the world, find items, buffs and secrets in other settlements from where you find items, buffs and secrets, and carry out quests both main and side to progress the story. In terms of world design, it's pretty linear. There's little beyond the margins and you are funneled down the critical path pretty readily. This is fine. I don't want this particular top-down adventure to be a sprawling epic because, well, not everything has to be. And because games that try and make you laugh as much as they do make you do game things need to be more conscious of economy, of their own ambitions and length and welcome and your time and your patience, Hermit and Pig achieves this. Moreover, it's fine that Hermit and Pig is a more streamlined experience than others in the genre, because Hermit and Pig is made by Heavy Lunch Studio, a genuine, bona fide, two-person setup. Heavy Lunch Studio is Mason Dickerson and Nathan Kennedy. Nathan Kennedy has been a software developer for almost a decade, primarily at Niftic Agency, where he built custom software for diverse, purpose-driven businesses. Mason Dickerson is an illustrator and cartoonist. His most recent work is the House Cat Trouble series, published by Random House Graphic. You should check those out because they're very good, and because it's a good primer on Dickerson's wonderful art style. A colourful, expressive and big-eyed, hard, physical, tangible version of what you see in Hermit and Pig. It reminds me of Bee and Puppy Cat, but there are likely countless more relevant reference points I'm simply not aware of, so take that with a grain of salt. Dickerson, in conjunction with Kennedy, are the whole studio. In the staff role, the two of them are jointly credited for, deep breath, game direction, game design, systems design, combat design, narrative design, dialogue and writing, sound design, music composition and production, and individually, Dickerson is responsible for art and animation and Kennedy for programming. Other than testers, family and Kickstarter backers, that's it. This is to the game's benefit. It is, within its genre, a leaner, more focused experience with very little padding, a simplistic story that is effective nonetheless in its singular setting, its broadly Adult Swim adjacent humour and occasional forays into the heartfelt. These attributes, plus the characteristic art style and homely folk and blues leaning soundtrack, lend this game a feel that could only come from such a small studio. You can feel the personalities driving this game. It's so obviously the product of individual interests that it's probably impossible not to be charmed by it. Art, music, light touch humour, all good. But what elevates this game? Why I'm still thinking about it several months after playing it, and why it seems to be gaining a minor second life through recent features on No Small Games, Left Behind Games Club, and the Kinda Funny Gamescast, is the combat system. Hermit and Pig uses a turn-based combat system with a twist. Namely, button combos. It works like this. You're thrown into a random encounter against an ant, a badger, an angry crow, neo-capitalist, or later, mutants. And you're presented with the battle screen. The back and top of Hermit and Pig's heads are visible at the bottom, your enemies facing you in the middle, and your options attack, book, items, special, and run along the top. Let's say you are presented with an ant or beetle. Something ground-dwelling. Now you are a smart and sophisticated player and listener, so you know that in such a situation, one would obviously stomp on such an opponent. You can consult the book option to review how to trigger this move. YAA. Close the book and select attack to begin the attack phase. Input that button combo to stomp on your opponent. Now, they're probably dead, but if not, it's the enemy's turn, and the defense phase begins. In this, you are presented with a meter not unlike the bar you might see in a golf game. A slider moves quickly along the bar, a sweet spot denoted by an off-colour section. Press A when the slider is in that section to perform the optimal block. All of this is carried out on a pretty unforgiving timer, which comes into play when capital C, critical, is active. A red block appears on the timer. Trigger your attack when the block is at the top of wherever the timer bar has dropped to utilise the critical feature, dealing at least double damage. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's your turn again. Except now, you are Pig. Now, why can you fight as Pig? Plot reasons. Well, fine, there is a pretty funny dream sequence, one of many that justifies, as much as these things can be justified, Pig's sentience. He can think and talk and crack jokes, so let's just accept that and move on to more pressing matters, like his role in combat, defense, and truffle hunting. In combat, Pig is added to your team and you control Hermit and or Pig alternately, turn by turn. Pig is a support character. He has minor, simple attack moves which can be useful in a pinch but are mostly window dressing for his primary abilities. He can defend to take damage for you, hide to completely conceal himself, or spy on enemies to reveal their weaknesses, particularly useful when you come up against a new type and need to know which of your attack verbs is the right one. Slap is good for flying enemies, by the way, and punch for humans. Performing these builds Pig's special meter, which allows him to initiate any one of 3 minigames. Your performance in which yields rewards ranging from gathering lots of items to dealing lots of damage. Hermit has the same special system with similar results, different minigames, but all of which generally involve inputting a button combo and a tight and admittedly quite sweat-inducing timer. Quickly, it all spirals out of control. You are presented with multiple enemies, whose targeting you must prioritise. You have items you can throw at these enemies, mushrooms that poison, put to sleep, and, of course, explode. Some enemies change stance during battle, meaning the attack you must use on them changes. Stomp will work on a ground-bound raven, for example, but not after it takes flight. Health bars go up, attacks and effects get wilder and more dangerous. Enemies have special moves that deal huge damage that you must interrupt or face the consequences. You must juggle various enemies while synergising Hermit and Pig's various moves to carry out the most effective game plan for each battle. Now hopefully this is obvious by this point, but to make it clear, there is a lot going on here. The great success of Hermit and Pig is how it takes some pretty gnarly old RPG and heavy-duty grim-dark Soulsborne-vania characteristics and makes them accessible, rounding the edges rather than sanding them off entirely. Representative of this is the excellent trinket system that feeds the combat. You can find various items around the world, or as rewards for side quests that buff your attack and defense in various ways. Each trinket has a point value, and you can only equip up to a certain amount of points, which, again, can be increased in various ways. You can have a build in what is broadly a comedy RPG. Now there is complexity here, but I think why I respond positively to it is simply because it's inherently conceptually funnier to be working out the best way to slap a fly than it is to invoke Mysterium or Cursed Unobtainium against a vanquished Gurgle or tarnished Bloodbag or whatever. Maybe I feel like I'm learning transferable skills. Well, back to the general flow of the game. You move from area to area, from woodland to town to city to big evil factory, levelling up steadily as you go, with a few additional perks should you engage with NPCs or explore a little. Other than that, it's a very linear game, with, as I say, little off the beaten track, and as before, this is fine. This is a smaller RPG, and I like that, as I don't want to be gathering logs for an enchanted squirrel to earn 5% chance of increased damage. There is no scope creep here, and importantly, if you have a low tolerance for this genre, there is no God-in-space battle at the end. Mild spoilers here, but while that final battle is against evil mutants, the impetus to do so is to save a small town. That's the game in a nutshell. A little adventure about the importance of community, friendship, and with its smaller scope and economical but genuine feeling dialogue, all the better for it. Add in a playful soundtrack, composed in-house by Dickerson and Kennedy, who are evidently so multi-talented that they now qualify for a distinction far beyond the commonly used triple threat denomination. Quadruple threat? Quintuplet threat? Sextuplet threat? Or whatever. The pair have created a well-realised, tightly focused game that hinges on great art direction and a deep but player-friendly combat system. I think this works for hardened RPG fans and those who are not. A great entry point that can also satisfy long-term genre fans, that is Hermit and Pig. Let's start to wrap this up and blow through a few more games. First, I finally played 2018's Donut County, the highly acclaimed puzzly quirk-em-up from former Arcane Kids iconoclast Ben Esposito. This game is a good time because of how it marries a vibrant pop art style with a trashed out world, light touch puzzling, and an oddly intriguing plot fueled by a pretty nasty little raccoon. I'm so hooked by the frictionless nature of the game that I play through it in 2 sittings, motivated to see where it goes and hear more of the famously good soundtrack. I enjoy the large cast of characters, the wry, sly satire, and the classy typeface that punctuates each chapter. I enjoy that one of my daughters enjoys it being inevitably rechristened as Whole Game, and temporarily satisfying her need to make valuable everyday objects disappear into the ether. That's Donut County, a famously good game you probably already know about, to another, Super Meat Boy. Super Meat Boy is the one touchstone precision platformer that I've never played, until earlier this year. There was no particular reason, beyond the lack of time and space to do so, but with Mugenics in my sights and having bafflingly never played an Ed McMillan game, it was finally time to do so. And it's good. With its slippery physics and floaty jump, it's not as player-friendly as its most obvious peer, Celeste, and as a result, less appealing, but it's still less abrasive than I imagined. Well, I mean, visually, it is abrasive. blood and guts and gore splattering the screen with intense frequency, but in terms of difficulty, it's less extreme than I think its reputation suggests. The quick restarts and micro-challenge structure do go a long way towards alleviating any frustration, and the real hard stuff is in the additional goals and dark worlds, which I'm not sure I'll be getting involved with. I battered my way through to the final set of levels before getting distracted by another game for the podcast, but like Dench Attack, I will return to it because I did enjoy it, and also, ego. Lastly, Daniel Linson's 2024 mad, brilliant leap year. A puzzle platformer where the platforming is the puzzle and traversal is your enemy, because you are basically made of glass and wishful thinking, and your jump can and will kill you. It is, as the description goes, a clumsy platformer about knowledge and discovery, where your goal is to find and collect the number pages of a calendar. To do so, you explore the 40 plus rooms of platforms, pits and pratfalls, working out how to just get around without exploding in a shower of bones. It sounds hostile, but as before, the quick restart and lack of any penalty for death mean you don't really care, and working things out, how to do small jumps, how to avoid spikes and so on, means there is a wealth of aha moments that gives this tiny game a big boost. I really like this game, and Linson is a prolific and talented developer with a unique take on gaming that can be seen on the many, many projects on his itch page. I'll leave that there for you and me to discover when we can. And finally, to tie up some loose ends from a previous episode of Dialogue Tree, let's talk about Splatoon Raiders. Well, sort of. On episode 47, I talked with Tokyo Game Life about this game, my reservations following the first few hours, and how it was slowly growing on me as I slowly came to see how the gameplay and challenge evolved. I mentioned being on the precipice of full-blown addiction. Following the episode, I fell off. I rolled credits the day after publishing and then rolled on into the post-game and a further 20 to 30 hours of ink-fueled chaos. Truly, as the game asks more of you, the more fun it gets. The more you try to get out of it, the more spicy and super spicy raids you attempt, the more challenges you attempt to unlock outfits, and the more you need to engage with gadgets, tools and buildcraft. Simply put, the more fun it gets. Raising hell in a crowd of salmonids never stops being a thrill, and the true post-game attraction, the bottomless buffet, is exactly what this system needs. I play and play and play until I realise it's a problem, so I put the game away and do what any sane person would do. Go straight to eBay and buy a used copy of Splatoon 2. No, seriously, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. I get Splatoon 2 not to play Turf War or the original version of Salmon Run, but for the Octo expansion, the single-player DLC campaign that series fans swear is the best the franchise has to offer, but mostly because of the hard sell that Mono from Tokyo Game Life gave me. A Splatoon single-player campaign that turns into Metal Gear Solid in the end. Let's go. The Splatoon 2 Octo expansion works like this. You enter a subway beneath the regular hub world of Inkopolis. You take the train along the line, each station representing a self-contained challenge level. You drop into the level, are given a set of weapons and parameters you must meet to complete the challenge. Just get to the end in a certain time, guide a ball along a track, avoid taking any damage from a barrage of enemies, jetpack around a puzzle level, and my personal favourite, being presented with a pile of boxes and told to make it look like a dog. You're given a reference model and have to shoot out the correct boxes to make yours match that. Give me a whole game of this. Finish your level, unlock the next one, and so on. Eventually, you'll unlock an intersecting line B. Progress along that to eventually unlock an intersecting line E. Your goal is to collect 4 MacGuffins, whose locations are only vaguely hinted at on the map, thereby encouraging you to just follow your nose and enjoy the ride. There's over 80 levels, some of which are deviously hard, but you don't need to finish them all to get those 4 MacGuffins. Gather those, and then the real fun begins. A long gauntlet of levels that makes an extended challenge out of the best mechanics Splatoon has to offer. Inking, platforming, yes, stealth, and at the end, a one-on-one combat situation that demonstrates how intense this playful, colourful game can be. And at the end of the second end, a one versus many combat situation that demonstrates how spectacular and silly this playful, colourful game can be. Mild spoilers again, but it's a rail ride around a corrupted Statue of Liberty. The final stretch of game is such a flex of design and style that it serves to reaffirm the point that Splatoon is now the series where Nintendo is at its most modern and experimental, incorporating contemporary trends, PvP, roguelite, co-op action RPG, and lavishing it with their own coat of ink. I loved Octo Expansion, and it is further evidence that this series as a whole has now taken a lot of swings and never struck out. Each game introducing something new, something additive, something that takes the formula to a new place. A genre and series I thought I was not supposed to be a part of, to enjoy, that I think now represents some of Nintendo's best tangible and philosophical practices. Thanks for listening. In the episode description, you can find a link to the show notes, which includes information on everything discussed on the show today. The music you have heard on the show is from all the games discussed on the show. Again, linked in the show notes. The artwork for Dialogue Tree was designed by Pixel Benny, and you can find the show online at dialoguetree.cc. Talk to you next time.